So a lot of us have a black sheep in the family. And so does Rolex. What's up, guys? It's your boy Rich here, back at it again. And speaking of black sheeps of the family, that just might be me in our case. But for Rolex, there is seemingly one within the Rolex family. It's not mentioned anywhere on the Rolex website, not even under their history section. It's as if it's been completely scrubbed because they don't want to acknowledge this model.
It does not exist.
It does exist. We just chose to forget him for 30 years.
And we're talking about the Rolex Marconi. So what exactly is the Rolex Marconi? Well, it was named after Guglielmo Marconi, who in 1909 won the Nobel Prize for radio being used as a means of communication. And at that time, radio was considered state-of-the-art technology, and Hans Wilsdorf, being the brilliant marketeer that he was, saw an opportunity here. After all, he introduced us to the first waterproof watch with his Oyster model, and through association, he wanted to continue the Rolex legacy with the Marconi name for being involved with anything groundbreaking and newsworthy. So, he registered the name, and during the 1920s and 1930s, he sold the Rolex Marconi. The Marconi was the most expensive watch among the Rolex models. It was made for the, quote, most important Rolex customers. It was the watch that firmly established Rolex as the premier luxury watch. In fact, they were sold in limited editions or special editions, sold in only the top London boutiques and other countries as well, such as the Cuervo y Sobrinos Habana in Cuba. There are some people who argue that the Rolex Marconi is not a true Rolex because all Wilsdorf did was put the Marconi name on existing Rolex cases, when in fact the Marconi is every bit a real Rolex with unique case designs. And they created their own manual wind movement for Marconi watches, called the Marconi movement. And these cases were often designed in 34 and 35 millimeters, which were appropriate at the time. A lot of us don't talk about the Marconi watches or even are aware of Marconi watches, and I think that's largely because they have never scored at auction the way that other Rolex, Daytonas, and Submariners have, which have fetched millions of dollars. And I have my own suspicions about the whole auction business. It is not as random as some of us might think it is. It is actually very controlled, and in fact, Rolex helps perpetuate or create a market for their watches. So they might create a market for expectations of a watch that might go for $10 million. And if that's the case, you can rest assured that Rolex will not allow that watch to bid for less than what is expected, because that would create a negative frenzy on the future of Rolex as a decline. So Rolex will swoop in and oftentimes bid more than whatever was expected for that watch. We don't even know who is on the other end of the lines, and a lot of times it is Rolex in these cases. Also, I think there were a lot of people, and maybe even up until now, thought that Newman's Daytona, which fetched $17+ million at auction, was bid by a wealthy individual collector, when in fact it was bid by Rolex all along. I'm not sure why they discontinued the Marconi line, because that watch was extremely popular during the 1920s and 1930s. Perhaps it was that the Marconi family and Hans Wilsdorf didn't agree on terms, or for whatever reason. But if Rolex could and was willing to create a reissue of the Marconi, they could do it really easily by creating a bidding sensation for a watch for whatever millions of dollars, which in turn would create the existing few Marconi watches on the aftermarkets to increase their value, and therefore creating a real seemingly need for a new Rolex model. And I don't think that the Marconi would be a high-end model the way that they once were. I think if Rolex wanted to introduce a reissue of the Marconi as an entry-level Rolex, that could work. But until that happens, we're still able to get the most affordable Rolex on the aftermarket. These are typically priced between $800 to $900 to $1,200, and I've seen one priced at $7,000. But these are still by far and away the most affordable Rolex we can get, and one of the coolest looking vintage Rolexes I've seen. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you the next time. So what is the Rolex Crony? So what is the Rolex? And Hans Wilsdorf, the Musketeer, it's as if the Marconi has been completely erased. It's as if the Marconi has been completely scrubbed.